Hello, and welcome to today's podcast. Today is Wednesday, 16 April, and we'll be discussing Ukraine and Russian peace talks are ongoing despite challenges. China has halted the delivery of Boeing jets from the US, and Amnesty International has reopened its Hong Kong office in exile. So, firstly, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has reaffirmed that Ukraine will never accept the recognition of Russian-occupied territories, declaring this a firm red line. Speaking alongside NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte in Odessa, Zelensky stated that only Ukrainians have the authority to decide on their territorial sovereignty. His remarks suddenly criticized US envoy Steve Witkoff's reported discussions with Russia. Still, Zelensky described the broader US-led diplomatic efforts as positive, signaling willingness to engage in negotiations as long as Ukraine's territorial integrity is upheld. Meanwhile, the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov acknowledged in an interview with Russian media that reaching an agreement with Washington on a potential peace deal has proven difficult. He noted that key elements of the settlement are being discussed. Russia remains wary of any deal that could disadvantage it or manipulate the country. Lavrov emphasized that Russia seeks to mutually beneficial agreements and made it clear that the Russian leadership will reject any outcome that risks renewed dependence on the West. So what? It appears highly likely that we are stuck in the same impasse that we have been since the start of negotiations, and it appears unlikely to change anytime soon. While it is likely that Russia is still trying to delay these negotiations as they continue to advance forward, it is becoming more and more likely that Trump will soon take further action against them, likely targeting their economy. Additionally, regardless of Zelensky's strong words, it is likely that he could be convinced to trade land for peace, provided there are security guarantees to ensure this peace is long-term. And next, China has told its airlines to halt deliveries of jets from US plane makers Boeing and to suspend their purchase of aviation equipment and parts from US companies in general, as reported by the Financial Times. The instructions from Beijing come as the world's two biggest economies impose tit-for-tat trade levies on each other in an escalating trade war. Bloomberg said that the Chinese government was also considering helping airlines that lease Boeing jets and are now facing higher costs. Such a move could prompt Chinese airlines to consider alternatives from European Airbus and homegrown manufacturers like Comac. China has reacted to the tariffs of up to 145% imposed by the Trump administration on Chinese imports by slapping duties of 125% on imports from the US, calling the moves by Washington unlawful acts of bullying. These Chinese tariffs on US imports would likely have caused the cost of bringing in aircraft and components to rise considerably. Since US President Donald Trump took office in January, he has unleashed a barrage of tariffs on foes and allies alike. Last week, though, he suspended a round of what he called reciprocal tariffs on most countries shortly after imposing them, but exempted China from this reprieve. World markets have been in turmoil as investors seek to come to terms with what many see as whimsical US trade policies with no sound economic basis. So what? It is likely that this move and others made by China will hurt the US economy significantly. Moves such as this damage both this company personally, but also the wider network of companies that support Boeing and the individuals that work for Boeing if it comes to a point where they no longer have the orders to sustain production. There's also other issues such as the cutting of rare earth minerals that have a significant effect on the US's military and technological advancements and infrastructure, which could quite possibly lead to them either abandoning this trade war or having to buy them from other sources at an exceedingly high rate. While it seems unlikely that Trump is going to back down anytime soon, this could have a significant effect on the US economy in the short and long term. It'll be interesting to see what move he makes next. And lastly, human rights group Amnesty International has announced that it is opening a new Hong Kong section in exile to replace the 2 offices it closed in the Chinese territory in 2021 amid repressive security laws imposed by Beijing. Amnesty's Secretary General said on Tuesday that the new section demonstrates the resilience of their movement and their determination to never be silenced. The new branch is officially registered in Switzerland and will be run by Hong Kong activists living in diaspora in Australia, Canada, Taiwan, Britain, and the US. Amnesty said that the office is the first to be founded and operated entirely in exile. Former Hong Kong lawmaker Fernando Cheng, who has joined the office as a board member, said that operating from abroad would allow them more freedom of action than in Hong Kong itself. According to Amnesty's website, the new office, called Amnesty International Hong Kong Overseas, will focus on advocating for the human rights of Hong Kongers within Hong Kong and abroad, amplifying their voices and fostering a strong dysphoria community globally. So what? It is highly likely that China will absolutely hate this and will take actions to try and silence them, such as intimidation tactics against workers and Hong Kongers around the world, as they have been since they cracked down in the 2021. So what? It is highly likely that China will hate this plan and will likely take actions to try and intimidate and challenge any moves made by Amnesty International, especially this office. Sadly, regardless of any action taken by NGOs outside of China and also inside of China if they can, China is unlikely to care and change any of its plans, as they've completely taken over Hong Kong and changed the laws to suit their needs, regardless of the deals they made when they took over the territory. Though highlighting China's repressive tactics, both in its territories such as Hong Kong and in the Chinese mainland, are positive and a good thing to do so the world understands how China operates, it is highly unlikely to change the situation in Hong Kong itself. Thank you for listening. I've been your host, Daniel, and I'll see you next time.